to see our mind-blowing project and to tell us all about your projects. From videos to posters, we have got it all covered for you to be astonished. We are inspired by your incredible photos. We admire the way you use art to create awareness about the planet. Thank you so much for joining us. And today, we are looking forward to see all about your work.
Thank you, Mariam. It's Mr. Brett speaking. I hope you can all see me. And thank you very much for the introduction. Can you see me now, Mr. Ben?
I can.
Great. And I'm going to share my presentation, hopefully. Can we see that?
Yes, looks great.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and thank you, Mariam, for introducing us. It's wonderful to see the work that you've put in to prepare for today, and I have the pleasure of just taking a couple of minutes to both talk very briefly about why I value water, why storytelling is an important part of that understanding of why I value water, but also why storytelling on its own is an important part of my culture and my background. And then to have the pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, whom I'll introduce at the end of my chat. So, very briefly, before I start on the story, I'd like to just talk about the wonderful exhibit that you put together. So your swarm of jellyfish that have inhabited the reflection garden just look fabulous, and I've had so many comments about them. And it's the question that you had in art with Miss Sam, which was truth and beauty. So looking at either something that's beautiful and trying to find the reality, the truth behind it, or the opposite, looking at something perhaps the truth isn't so beautiful and then trying to find the beauty in that thing. And I think that your story that you've told through that medium of art and mixed media and sculpture, if you like, just looks fantastic. So I'm really, really pleased or proud of the work that you put into putting those together. So well done. The idea of storytelling as a medium is really important when we think of where we've come from and our cultures and our backgrounds and our histories. So that's where I'm going to start my story of why water is important to me. So that you can see there, that was my background, my backyard when I grew up. I would have spent, of 100 days of summer, I would have spent 99 of them on that beach. And there's about, I don't know, 50 kilometers of that beach from the point where this photo's taken to the end of it. Beautiful white sand, blue water, fish, dolphins, whales, seals, everything. And that's where I grew up. And so for me, the importance of water, both the marine life and the sea that you can see there, but also the photo you can see is taken from the top of a small mountain, which is called Moana. And water was an all-important part of that because I saw it burn. I saw it burn 3 or 4 times as I grew up, and it burned and it burned and it burned for days and nights on end, and it knocked out all of the plants and the trees. But so I grew up there, and places like this is called Coyote Falls. It was in my backyard. It was 5 minutes from my house, and ponds and rivers and lakes and things like this were so close to me. So I grew up thinking that was the norm for everybody else. So I want to connect this to a story that you might be familiar with. So let me just change again. I can't hear you all, but can you just sort of nod or put your hand up if you know what story this is? Anyone seen this story? Yeah, I can see most of your hands going up. So this is Moana, right? Most of you know Moana, and the guy on the right, his name was Maui. Now, you may not know it, but Moana on the left, that actually means ocean. So Moana means ocean in the language of where I'm from. And Maui on the right, Maui Tiki Tiki is his name. He was a demigod, as the story says. And he did all sorts of fantastic things in the stories of my people. He hauled up a giant fish, and that fish turned into the land. He tied up the sun to slow it down enough so that people would have enough time to cook and to work and to eat and to play during the day. And all of those pictures on his body, they tell a story as well. I can see one in there. It's called Te Niho Niho o Te Taniwha, which means the teeth of the dragon. And it tells the story of where he's been and where he's come from. But also, what you might have recognized in the story of Maui as they stand in the Pacific Ocean is that it's based on a true story. It's based on the truth. So here we have Moana sailing on her yacht as she found her way to leave that island. On the left-hand side is a real photo, and those are the images of the waka, the boats that were sailed from mainland through into the Pacific Ocean and eventually all the way to New Zealand, which was the last piece of land to be colonized. So the story that's told through Moana, although you might not know it, is actually based on a true story or a story of origin for many people. And here you have the boats on the right-hand side as they left the island to go and explore and to navigate and to populate the rest of Polynesia. And on the left, you have what's called a waka, and it's full of warriors, and they're off to war. Well, in the olden days, that's how they would have gone off to war. So the story of Moana is very, very much linked to the story of the oceans, but it's also very, very much linked to a truth. And if I can very quickly talk about, this is again my home, so this is the same beach that you saw, and that mountain, you can see it's been burnt on one side. That mountain's name is called Mowal, and Mowal means caught by the dawn. And the purpose of some of those stories is to look into a deeper meaning before we have a knowing of why these things occur, that pre-science, before we could figure stuff out. So Mowal means caught by the dawn because in the stories of origin is he didn't start there, he moved there, he was dragged there. And he was dragged there because he was trying to avoid a fight with another mountain. And so in the olden days, they created stories to explain the things that we didn't know. And so now we know differently, but that's how people told those stories. And so you can see in the picture on the right, the mountain right at the end of the peninsula, he moved there. And so you can see where he came from, because as he was dragged through the oceans, he created these channels. And so you can see why they might have thought there was some truth behind that story, because he moved over time. And as he came, he dragged and he dragged and he cut all these openings in the sea floor, which created the harbor. So stories are important because they give meaning. They give meaning before we know the truth. They're changeable. We change them. Every time we tell a story, we change it. But the story endures. And they always have a truth behind the story. And I think importantly, they're ageless. You can tell a story. Okay, you can see on the right-hand side, that is the picture of Moa, which has been caught by the dawn. As easy as the next person could tell a story. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. So for me, water is very, very important. It's where I grew up, but also stories form a part of knowing where I come from. And interestingly today, and fantastically today, and we really appreciate his time, I'd like to welcome in a moment, I'm going to hand over to a gentleman whose name is Noam Bedein. And I know that you probably know more about him than I, because you've been studying the story of the Dead Sea for some time. So why we have Noah here today, sorry, Noam, is to help us to recognize the importance of World Water Day. So World Water Day, as you know, is driven by the United Nations. It takes place on the 22nd of March every year since 1993. It celebrates and raises awareness of the 2.2 billion people that live without access to safe water. And it's important because we know at our school we're following the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is goal number 6, water and sanitation. And so the theme for this year's World Water Day is valuing water. So Noah is here today with us to share his personal story about what valuing water means to him, where it's taken him as a photographer and a conservationist. He's from Israel, where he's currently focused on the magnificent, magical and endangered Dead Sea. The sea as it undergoes changes and the healing that's required to bring it back to life. And based on his thousands of photographs that he's taken over 4 years, he's created exhibitions, he's created multimedia, he's created virtual reality presentations. And I know that just last night he was speaking to more than 500 people, taking them on this journey. So we're very lucky to have him here today. His work's been on CNN, it's been featured by the government of Israel, it's been on National Geographic, it's been recognized by NASA, and the Arbor School is very, very pleased to have him here today. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Noam. So Arbor School, I think we could probably give a big round of applause and hope that he can hear us. Welcome, Noam.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Brett. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Nadine, for having me. This is quite an honor and pleasure being here with you in this on World Water Day 2021, when we all have to be promoting water value water conservation, especially here in the Middle East. And today I see this as an historic day where this is the first step for us to be promoting together this value of water. It's a true pleasure and honor being here today. Let me just start with the presentation, going straight into my story, how I present my story, and start really analyzing how we actually get about all this. I'll share my screen right now. Okay, here we go. This is my 4-minute video, 4-minute story, how I began the whole concept of the Dead Sea. So please be with me.
Shalom, my name is Noam Bedein, and I'm an Israeli storytelling photographer. In September 2016, at the crack of dawn, I captured this unique salt formation. As I approached it, I suddenly realized that I had already documented this same formation only 5 months earlier, while it was then mostly underwater. Starting from April 2016, I have been documenting the dramatic changes taking place on the northern Dead Sea. By January 2017, the water level had gone down 1 meter in 18 centimeters. I was shocked to see with my own eyes how fast the water level in the Dead Sea is shrinking. Currently, it is at its lowest point in recorded history. Twice a month, I go out with the only exploration boat in the northern Dead Sea. Besides photographing the incredible landscape, I measure the water level. I have always been drawn to this mysterious and magical sea, which is the lowest point on Earth. Having spent the last decade photographing all over the world and working here in Israel as a photojournalist, I am now blessed with the opportunity to focus on documenting this extraordinary location that has been nominated as a World Heritage Site. Walking on these exotic salt beaches, I can't stop thinking that I'm one of the first people ever to set foot on these newfound beaches, uncovered only weeks ago. The beaches and formations still surrounded by water are incredible treasures of this extraordinary sea. These salt treasures can be found in many shapes and layer formations: salt mosaic carpets, salt pearls, salt diamonds, salt stalactite, preserved salt caves, and salt chimneys. With all this natural beauty and magic comes the tragic part of the story. Once any treasure is no longer covered by the water, it dries out under the sun and eventually crumbles and disappears. In the 20th century, the water level of the Dead Sea went down over 25 meters, and today it is 420 meters below sea level. The estimated yearly gap between water coming into the Dead Sea and water going out through evaporation and factories pumping out the water is a staggering 600 million cubic meters of water. That's over 1.5 million cubic meters of water vanished every single day. The estimated cost of direct damage comes to $90 million a year. Scientists are saying that by the year 2050, only a little pool of salt will remain. Over the next few years, I will continue to take delegations from Israel and abroad on a unique discovery boat ride, the only one of its kind, where we will explore new geological phenomena and measure the water level. Now is the time to think about the next generation and preserve the heritage of the land of Israel for future generations.
Yes.
Okay, so those of you who do not know, Abba means dad in Hebrew. As you can see, I shared this short video showing how everything became very personal. In order to make a storytelling effective, it has to be personal to you, first of all. And I started this project of documenting the Dead Sea just a few months after my firstborn was actually born. And the more he's been growing up, the more I've been seeing the Dead Sea being going down, saying to myself, asking myself, is he going to actually experience this beautiful place, this heritage place? And it's not really that clear. So once it became personal to me, this gave me the energy to keep on pursuing this kind of job, this kind of documentation work in order to keep on expanding it. And I think that for you to keep on promoting your cause, your water conservation project, make it personal to you, it'll become more effective, and people can actually relate and understand more about your story and about your cause. So I'm showing here, and this is the map, just making things very clear. I know this is a school, so making things very clear where we actually at. This is the Dead Sea right over here, okay? And it's amazing that it's not, this is how we used to draw the shape of the Dead Sea. And I was amazed to realize that this has completely been inaccurate. And the only documentation we had up until today, up until I started this unique project of documenting the receding of the water level, was with satellites. We had NASA taking pictures every 20 years or so. You would see the difference of the body of the Dead Sea, how it's been shrinking, right now in the lowest in recorded history. And already back in 1979, there's been 2 parts of the Dead Sea. So even most people in Israel do not even realize that it's completely been disconnected. And the northern Dead Sea, it's almost impossible to explore and to understand what is happening over there. And if you see on this map over here, wherever you see red and yellow, all this area is filled with sinkholes. We'll be experiencing in a moment, what does that mean, a sinkhole? The sinkhole is what is devastating the entire area. It's the catastrophic aspect of the receding of the water level, causing huge damages. And basically the only way to explore the Dead Sea today is only through a boat. So I basically realized the more I've been promoting this boat excursion, the more I understood that by having the storytelling ways of sending my photographs and sharing my photographs, I was able to encourage people from around the world to come join us on this boat and to be excited and to be inspired about the story. So this whole combination of turning your story, promoting a tour, promoting a sightseeing adventure was a great way to educate people from around the world what is happening on the Dead Sea. And it gave me a way to keep on documenting the Dead Sea like never done before. So I'm the first one to actually document the Dead Sea almost in the past 5 years, having unique content that I have today that I can share with around the world and inspire them about this unique story of the Dead Sea. And I have this, if you remember a bit in the first video, the video we just watched right now, you saw me with the measuring tape, measuring this salt structure, this salt pillar that was on the shore, and eventually it crumbled and fell, what you see here in this photograph. And after 1 year of measuring, I got to 1 meter 58 centimeters. It's a huge drop. I mean, I would say that some of you are in this height, 1 meter 58. And if there's one number here to leave with today about the Dead Sea, I know you've been learning about the Dead Sea, and it's absolutely amazing and fascinating. There's one statistic, one number to lead here today about how much we're losing of the Dead Sea is this number over here, 600 pools. 600 pools, 600 Olympic pools are dried up every single day in the Dead Sea. Okay, that makes it more relevant to understand how much we're losing it, making sense, because we've seen a swimming pool before in our lives, right? The more we understand how much a swimming pool, how much water there's in one swimming pool, 600 of those every single day gives us a better sense of understanding how much we're losing this world wonder from up close. And the more I've been promoting these rides, I had people coming joining these rides to see and to show them firsthand what is happening. I would share with them my documentation. They'll get excited what they're seeing right now. I would share with them, look what was here a couple of years ago, going all the way back 4 or 5 years, and really touching it to base to explain firsthand and how fast the water's receding of the Dead Sea. And I had tourists coming from around the world, coming year after year, and I took their picture from the exact same location. If you can see here, you can see the top picture is 2016, below is 2017, and you can see the differences. I made it personal for the visitor when they came to the boat excursion, made it personal for them to really see the changes happening from the exact same location taking the exact same picture. Okay, so this is how becoming an effective storyteller is affecting your audience to come join you on your sightseeing adventure and then being inspired, and they'll never forget this experience in their lives. Now, let me just go and say, why focus on the Dead Sea, right? I mean, it's called the Dead Sea, right? Dead Sea, you think nothing is living over there? And we're talking about World Water Day, where we value water. And I'll be showing, just a 1.5 minutes with my photographs, trying to explain how unique this water body actually is and how this became an inspiration of promoting water sustainability for the entire region. So let me just share my photographs just for you to have in the background. The Dead Sea, like you learned before, is the lowest place on Earth. It's considered the 8th wonders of the world. Because it's the lowest place on Earth, it's actually one of the saltiest bodies on Earth. And becoming the lowest place, it actually has more oxygen, up to 8% more oxygen. It's easier to breathe in this area. What this means to the scientific world, to the therapeutic world, people from around the world that come to get healed in the Dead Sea. People that have problems with breathing or skin diseases, they come to the Dead Sea to get healed. The more I've been exploring the Dead Sea, the more I've been seeing how the life is emerging out of this catastrophe, out of this place. And I've been exposed how gorgeous in this place actually is, like I've never seen before. And that was part of that, me actually promoting it. The significance it has to the entire world. There's 26 minerals in the Dead Sea combined with the salt. These minerals, by the way, they provide 25% of the world's agriculture, okay? If you think about it for a second, the Dead Sea is actually feeding up to 1 billion people around the world. So it already has a significance, already has a significance throughout the world, how unique this water treasure actually is. And that's the uniqueness of the Dead Sea. It started from becoming something very personal. The more we got into the story itself, I realized how unique this body of water actually is. And I was exposed to the wonders of this place. And you'll see how deep it actually goes, taking it into a much wider level of promoting a much larger cause of water sustainability for the entire area. So this is just part of the photographs. Like you heard from Brett, I got tens of thousands of photographs from this place. It's an inspiration to be sharing this with people, sharing especially the beauty and magic of this place like I've never seen before. Okay, the way I started, how did I become a storyteller? So for me, it's a very common thing for many Israelis after their army service is to go travel and backpacking to different parts around the world. I went 1 year to Asia, to the Far East, to experience different cultures, different people, different religions. This is Mount Everest here that you have here on top. And for me to push my limits and to just make that choice that I wanted to experience and see I wanted to get as far as possible, just shows that, don't be scared to be dreaming big and reach for the skies. Anything is possible if you just put your mind into it. Okay. And what I had at the time, traveling for 1 year to 10 different countries, I had my camera. And with my camera, I was able to self-express myself through all the experiences I've been going through, capturing myself at that moment. And when I came back home to Israel, I was able to self-express myself and my story through my photographs. That's how I started to become a photojournalist. My biggest dream to come true is living with the orangutan apes in Indonesia. I love wildlife, I love nature, and seeing this animal from up close, which is 98% DNA of a human being, and seeing them in their jungles and seeing their habitats and seeing how they're living was a dream come true for me. And I have this on my wall. I have this picture to remind me that dreams can come true if you just put your mind into it. And again, for me to have my camera to capture myself during these moments was a great way for me to share my story using my photographs. And of course, taking photographs over a period of time was a great way to educate, to inspire, and to really create awareness on your own cause that you wanted to spread throughout the world. Now, if I go on to the next level, after learning about how to use a camera, I've learned a new kind of way how to excite your audience. I'll be happy also to send this to you guys. But this is a great way. This is a 2 minute promo. I've done a whole expedition in what's called 360 virtual reality. Have you guys ever heard about virtual reality? It's basically a technology where you can actually move the screen either on your iPad or a smartphone or on the screen. So check this out. This is a 2-minute video. And over here, I'm focusing on the destruction of the Dead Sea, on the destruction of the sinkholes, making it very dramatic. So I capture the most dramatic scenes of the Dead Sea, and I turn it into a more interactive kind of way. So people on the other side can not only watch a screen, but actually move their mouse around so they can actually feel they're actually there. So look at this 2-minute video. I'll just move my mouse around so you can see in understanding what's 360.
Welcome to the Dead Sea. We'll be going through a 360 virtual reality expedition of Mineral Beach that was deserted 5 years ago. Today is 19th of October, the first day of a global climate change week. Welcome.
There's huge sinkholes on the shore.
Check this out. This is exactly the spot where you can see how everything just fell into the sinkhole itself.
Just a minute and a half of video.
Welcome to the Dead Sea.
Let me just take off the screen for a second so I could show you. So that was just showing you in a new kind of interactive way how we can actually really inspire our audiences using more advanced technologies. And I wish one of these days taking your projects and turning into a whole virtual reality will be a great tool for you to present it and to share with people around the world in an interactive kind of way. Now, guess what? I turn off the screen for a moment just to show you. On one hand, I showed the most devastating aspect of the Dead Sea, right? The sinkholes, how it's causing huge damages. It's really showing the dramatic part of it. Let me show you what comes out from the sinkholes. Look at this. This is a salt diamond. Look at this, these squares. Comes out like this without touching it. It comes out like this, squares that comes out from the earth. From these sinkholes, this beautiful Dead Sea treasure, okay, this water treasure. These are sent to labs around the world because it's a unique kind of shape and form that comes out from the earth. And the fact this comes out from the most devastating area of the sinkholes, having this treasure is showing the other side of the story. And I wish I could, if I was there right now, just pass this around for you guys to feel this. It's absolutely amazing. We have different sizes of these treasures, small ones, big ones, but part of also of storytelling is having interaction so you can actually feel something in your own personal hands. But for now, you can actually see it from up close as much as you can. And the fact this is coming from the most devastating area is just showing what you want to be focusing on eventually to get your story across and to convey a message is looking on the trying to be optimistic, trying to have hope at the end of it. It's trying to look at the positive aspect. As hard as actually to be saying positive, it's the other side of the story. We actually want to be focusing and encouraging people around the world. Let me just share again my screen. And if you've seen the sinkholes beforehand on that video, you saw how devastating it actually is happening in the parking lots. Here you have sinkholes that actually have life in these sinkholes. You have fresh water springs. You actually have fish in some of these sinkholes, literally life that are emerging out of these sinkholes, which is a devastating aspect which is happening. And of course, inside the water itself, you have life that is emerging outside of the water. And this life, there's actually microorganisms. These live bacteria are living in fresh water springs underneath the Dead Sea, creating these beautiful sleeves of salt chimneys. And this was only known to the scientific world like 6-7 years ago. So what is happening in this one-of-a-kind place is absolutely fascinating and exciting. And it's really getting people around the world to be recognizing how unique this actually is. Let's go on to the next level. Okay, and by the way, I took this photograph just a couple of weeks ago, showing you the difference. You can see the differences here. This is the exact same location, 1 year after another, but you can see it's a beautiful photograph. And that's part of the contrast. Trying to show the beauty out of a catastrophe, that's a contrast going back and forth, dealing with water conservation, water sustainability. Okay, and now if we're going straight into the roots of how this is connected to the much larger picture of water, is exactly this. Why is the Dead Sea disappearing? Why are we losing it? The main reason, the 70%, if you can see the pie in front of you, the 70% of it is because the sources of the water have been dried out. And for us to take the Dead Sea to a much larger context, what is happening throughout our region and the entire Middle East, you get a much better perspective about the value of water. The source here of water, you can see where the water is actually coming from. Okay, you got the Dead Sea over here, and you see the Jordan River, which is what used to be feeding the Dead Sea. This is the Sea of Galilee, but you can see that the water streams are coming from neighboring countries. And basically, it's taking the Dead Sea, which needs huge quantities of water, into a much larger understanding where the water is actually coming from. And that made me to realize how our neighboring countries dealing with today with water. And basically, what's interesting enough that on the other side of the Dead Sea, you got the Kingdom of Jordan, the country Jordan. And they're considered the 4th driest country in the world. So the moral question is, if the Dead Sea needs enormous amounts of fresh water to save it, the question is, do you take this water to save a water treasure, or do you take this water to provide it to a thirsty population? And that's the moral dilemma you get through all the time. And of course, it's a human right to be providing fresh water for population as a first priority. Let me go into the much larger picture of what's happening throughout the Middle East in terms of water. So to understand how relevant this day actually is, what we have here today is a historical day, having the first step of promoting regional water sustainability. So check this out, I'll be speaking at the same time. This is just, we took this like a year ago, finding different information what is happening throughout the Middle East in terms of water. And you should know that this is the first time in history that the main rivers of the Middle East are being dried out, causing huge problems, shortages of water. Okay, you have all the way, it starts with Turkey, the Tigris River. These are ancient and historical rivers that go throughout the entire Middle East. Turkey built huge dams to preserve the water, and therefore water cannot go through countries like Iraq, Syria. You'll see very soon back then in Iraq how they have absolutely almost no water whatsoever. Look at this, almost completely dried out. Tigris River, there's someone actually walking, crossing through the river by foot. It shows how serious the situation actually is.
لم يزل الجفاف يسيطر على معظم مناطق ميسان. هنا في ناحية
Syria had a huge, beautiful lake that was dried out, and I'm sure that maybe you probably heard about the civil war happening in Syria. The civil war in Syria began because having conflict about water. You had 250,000 farmers not having water for their crops, and they need to immigrate to other regions that had rationing. The Nile, the longest river in the world, going through 9 countries. Huge problems today with Cairo. Cairo is the 2nd largest city in Africa, the 5th in the world. They're having huge problems with water conservation.
بناء سد جديد. رئيس الوزراء الإثيوبي أعلن عزم بلاده إقامة سد آخر لتوليد الطاقة بمقدار 2000.
Islands in the middle of the Nile.
بتتفاض على ايه؟ هو عمال يقول احنا بنتفاض، تفاض على ايه؟ تفاض عليه يا ابن الله يخرب بيته وبيت ابوه.
And one of the countries that actually has it worse than it all is actually Iran. rivers have been dried out completely as well,
تبدیل شده.
causing huge
عبور از
shortages
گلهای
of water.
رودی که دیگه نیست غم انگیزه، اما سهم
People
من
are demonstrating a lot in Tehran for supply of water on us as well. This is a river bank that you have a jeep driving through. So this gives you a much brighter context of really understanding and value the water in the Middle East, which became the most valuable source, the most valuable asset we have in the Middle East, that sometimes has been taken for granted. But this is a huge problem. And water has been always a cause in history. It's been always a cause for war, but at the same time, like we've seen today, it's a cause for diplomacy, for working side by side. This is our slogan we came up with, save our water treasures. And I urge you students, you guys could be using the slogan for any water conservation project. Let's turn the slogan into regional and eventually to the world itself. Let's combine all the water treasures into one place. And that's part of us to understand everything is connected together in this story. Now, I could say that I took this cause of the Dead Sea to a much broader context, like I just tried to describe here today, with the purpose of promoting regional sightseeing adventures focused on water sustainability. I could be honest, you living at the United Arab Emirates, me living in Israel, we should be thankful that we both live in countries which are global leaders in water technology, water solutions, and the expanding of this cause to a much wider cause of promoting water sustainability for the entire Middle East. This is what I've been developing the past few months, is really developing eco-sightseeing adventures focused on water. And we have great partners for these kind of projects. I'm working with this organization called Gulf Red Med, who's actually supposed to be flying me to the UAE to Dubai, also actually supposed to be in Dubai today, with this purpose as to having a regional cooperation behind this kind of cause. Okay, and my summary of this entire presentation, showing a 2-minute video, once we learn how to make an impact with your story, and exposing millions of people throughout the world, you learn how to write up your story in an article. You learn how to speak to a camera. You learn how to guide visitors. This is when you become an effective storytelling, knowing that it is touching someone on the other side, making them motivated for your cause. So this is a 2-minute summary of my story using all these methods of reaching out to journalists and to media and really getting exposure throughout the world with this kind of cause. I'll just finish with this short video showing how far you can actually reach, but just putting your mind into it.
The Dead Sea is a very unique place, and we're losing it day by day. It hit me personally, and I have to do what it takes to keep on documenting and showing people firsthand about the receding of the water level, the lowest in recorded history. My name is Noam Bedein. I have a nonprofit called the Dead Sea Revival Project. The aim and goal is educating about the environmental aspect of the Dead Sea and inspiring a whole new generation about the story.
We went out to sail on a changing sea. If the water level of the Dead Sea this morning was this high, in another year it will be approximately 1.5 meters lower. While the drop in water level has caused considerable environmental damage, it has also exposed hidden, fascinating layers that have never been seen before.
Since April 2016, I've been documenting the Dead Sea like never before.
Noam Bedein ventures onto the waters twice a month to document the morphine landscape through photography and 360-degree video to create a virtual reality experience, which he exhibits abroad to raise awareness.
This salt formation behind us, a year ago, was almost completely underwater. In order to see the Dead Sea, we have to look up north. North is meaning restoring the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, the Jordan River. That's basically the focus, is restoring the historical flow. This is our challenge today, is to create a global supporting community behind this cause, looking into the future for healing, for saving the Dead Sea.
So you'd say this is sort of a PR project to save the Dead Sea?
For sure. We call it environment advocacy and education. That's our challenge today. Saving really the Dead Sea, and this is what brought me to really see the potential, is a model case of the entire world, and specifically for the Middle East. The water crisis around the world is going to be one of the main issues that the entire world is going to have to be facing in the next decade.
In the past few years, Noam Bedein has gained a rich, state-of-the-art visual archive from the lowest place on Earth. He presents his story using arts and media with the purpose to engage and inspire audiences throughout the world.
Okay, so that's my story in a nutshell. And since a good storyteller, especially for the sustainability cause, always calls for an action. So first of all, I'd love to have this platform say you're all welcome to visit us. We'd love to show you firsthand and to communicate more in that. But if I have a vision, I would love to share with you, with the Arbor School and with the students. And my hope is for the next World Water Day 2022 is together with all of you to be able to transform your water conservation projects to be a part of a regional eco sightseeing adventure where you can get to share your story and cause with others. This is what I'd love to be working with you. And this is my vision for a much broader context of having anybody who's involved with water conservation for a much broader cause and educating and inspiring others throughout the world to take part of it. So thank you so much for your attention first thing in the morning. Like I said, it's been a pleasure and honor being here in World Water Day, in this historic day of having this regional cooperation for promoting this value of water. So thank you very much.